All right. All right. We may be playing Wi-Fi Russian roulette today because the Wi-Fi Spectrum is not great, and Spectrum is definitely not great when there's rain. The 1 or 2 days a year where there's rain in LA, Spectrum is not great. So it shut off this morning while I was working out, but it turned back on. So fingers crossed. I think that it would go to my phone. I think if the Wi-Fi dies, it would use my phone cellular thing as a deal, maybe, but I don't know this for certain. So we'll just have to see. Hello, 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 hello. Hude, what up? Yeah, everything's good, man. No complaints. I mean, the markets are. What did we decide it was? We said it was both whipsawing, ripsawing, and rickshawing. There was like 3 different words we all agreed on. But whipsaw, we all agreed. Even everybody agreed that whipsaw count. Like whipsaw. All right, so whipsawing. Yeah. Jerome Powell talks today at 9:20 a.m. Pacific time, noon 20 p.m. Eastern time. And I expect there's so much negative sentiment in the market. I don't expect him to say anything that's going to unsettle markets any further. He's got enough ire on him for wrongly predicting the economy for 2 years straight, like the in the wrongest way by every metric. So I don't think he's going to pee all over the markets. I think he will try to stay not political. It's just a speech in Philadelphia. So I don't think he's going to say anything one way or the other. He's going to say we will try to be data dependent. He may say, well, who knows? I don't think he'll say what kind of data. I don't think he will have to mention the shutdown. But I actually think these are all bullish things that will unwind. So in my mind, what you have coming is you have the government will start back up at some point. I think by next week, by the end of next week, I think the government will be back in business. Then I also believe, so you have that would be a bull market day. And remember, the crypto space is now very much tethered to the traditional kind of legacy financial space, like stocks, bonds, equities, and all that. So I would say that's a bullish moment. So government turning back on, government unshut down, bullish moment. ETFs, in-kind asset exchange is coming. They thought in October, but because the government shut down, it might be off by a few weeks. But also that's already been filed. So in-kind redemptions, meaning Bitcoin to IBIT, IBIT to Bitcoin, Ethereum to ETH, ETH to Ethereum, as well as staking in the ETFs. All that should have been coming in October. Maybe it pushes to the late October, early November. Those are very bullish moments. The more this trade war stuff gets talked about, the less of an effect it has. Like at first it's like, oh my God. And then the next is like, oh, okay. And pretty soon it's just cry wolf again. It's just that we haven't heard any trade war stuff since March, April, May, and therefore, it's good for some good back and forth volleying and keeps markets whip sawing back and forth, which trading firms, prop desks, they all love it. So yeah. So these are all, I think these are bullish things. I mean, you could say interest rate cut, but that's psychologically bullish to a bunch of idiots. But it really makes no difference. And for those of you that might be looking at the housing market, which looks really bad, by the way, And you're like, oh man, but the lower rates, well, that's not directly intuitive. Lower rates in the low end of the yield curve don't really affect the rates, or at least the area of rates that would affect mortgage rates, because you have two things going on. The treasuries, there's a very loose correlation. I mean, treasuries down, then eventually mortgage rates may soften, but the mortgage rate market is also influenced by the banks willing to lend. And if banks aren't willing to lend, it doesn't matter what the rate might be. Like, oh, rates are, 4% because, Fed funds is 2% or 1.8. Therefore, the mortgage rates are slowly coming down. Again, they're not affected by short-term borrowing rates that prime brokers borrow. So the Fed's interest rate does not directly affect mortgage rates. And mortgage rates don't drop with it. They drop with treasuries more so. And then even if they drop, everybody doesn't have access, because banks go, why would I lend into an environment where rates keep dropping? I make less off the deal. F you. I know because rates are low that we're in a bad environment. If we're in a bad environment, why would I make the loan? I wouldn't make the loan at 8%, much less 4%. So if you're a quality, if you're like if you have really good credit credentials, then maybe you can get a hold of some of that, cheaper, prime plus whatever mortgage rates. But most people don't have access to that stuff. And so it's creating a bigger divide between the people that can get a hold. Now, you know who can get those low rates? Banks, investment facilities, BlackRock, companies like that. And they can go in and buy up real estate and become net, aggregate giants in the real estate ownership space. We just can't. So so that's another thing too, is that the low mortgage rates, they don't really affect most of us because we can't qualify. And it doesn't affect those banks because they're getting those borrowing rates right in repo. Like they can go right into repo and pledge collateral, take cash. They can go to books, big giant books of real estate that other facilities have, and say, hey, offload your stuff to us. And they can get sweetheart deals on it. None of that stuff applies to us. None. So mostly the rates you see, you can't even get. Even if you could get them, you can't get them, and you can't. So all that is to say that when people are like, oh yeah, because you hear dummies talk, oh yeah, the Fed's cutting rates, therefore mortgages are going to go lower. Well, yes, but not because of that. They're likely rates go lower when there's a variety of things, but essentially, it's to entice borrowing. But also rates tend lower when there's less use for the money in other places, right? A healthy economy could support, because of job availability and growth and wage increases, it could support 5, 6, 7, 8% interest on a home, which is ridiculous, by the way, if you think about it. But it could support that because you're making more money and you feel confident that you'll make more money next year than you made this year. You're like, yeah, what the hell? I'll do it. I like the house. You spend a lot of time in your house. So having a cool house is great. I don't know that you need to own it. I don't think ownership means anything. I mean, we don't even own, I own my house. Do you? You have to pay property tax every year. If not, they're going to take your shit. Well, yeah. Okay, well then you don't really own it. You kind of own it, quasi own it. You're still servicing it forever. You're servicing it forever. So there's no such thing as free land ownership, right? Like you don't own it outright. Well, there may be somewhere on earth where you're not paying taxes, but I don't think it's a place you'd want to live. You're going to pay property taxes somewhere. And if you're paying property taxes, then you never own it. It might as well be Mexico, where you have a 99-year lease. You think, 99 years, I won't be alive then. Yeah, except maybe you will. because science and AI are moving so fast that maybe you will be alive in 150 years. And then you have to think, wow, I really did not play my compounding interest cards right. So when you expand your time horizon, and again, not forever because robots will be doing this for us pretty soon, but let's say over the next few years, let's see, you own the equity even if you default. Well, not exactly. You don't even own all that, because when you default, are you in control of the sale of the property, or is the banking institution that you financed from in control of it? Or even if you own it outright, if the government comes in and forcibly forecloses your property, you don't own shit. You get what they give you at the end of some daisy chain of proceedings. You're not in control. This is what I'm saying. You're never in 100% control of a home. You could kind of say with a vehicle you are. It's a little bit more, but not quite. You get the difference after fees. But Bitcoin, again, I think you just like to argue. Are you the one throwing the auction? Are you the one out there? Hey, give me 5, give me 5, give me 10, give me 10, 10, 10, 10, 11. No. Are you the one with the gavel? No. You're sitting in the crowd, maybe watching other people lowball your shit and then giving you the difference after a ton of fees. You have no control over that. I'm guessing you haven't had a house go to auction. You're not an active participant, not even close. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I just think but if you go the other direction and you think, I'm okay without the concept of ownership. Okay. As long as you just get rid of that concept. Like, I don't need to technically own anything. What do I care? I want to enjoy it. And then when it's time to move on, whatever. Go enjoy another house. The hack job is most people don't stay in a house more than 10 years if you're moving through the house cycle. And because of the way they front load interest, your first 8 to 10 years, you're just paying a big giant portion of the interest, meaning you're not really building any equity in the house. So you're just paying interest. You're basically just doing an interest-only loan anyway. You don't own shit. You own the equity. The auction might not matter. Oh, man. Again, I think you like to argue for the sake of arguing, which is fine. I'm just going to chalk your statements up to doesn't mind losing money to be right. When you ask Bitcoin if he wants to be right or he wants to be rich, he's going to say he wants to be right. You technically own the equity. You can never get 100% of it. So you tell me what you actually own. You can't. So again, your arguments are semantic and I get it. You're going to die on that hill. Good for you. The only thing a homeowner gets in a foreclosure is a bill to pay the lender's legal. Well, that's another amazing thing. God, you can have equity, get foreclosed, get racked, auctioned, and then owe money when it's over. But if you switch in your mind the idea of ownership, if you just get rid of the idea of ownership, then things become a little easier. Like I've had to, because through investing, for years of investing and seeing accounts go up and down and up and down. Like I remember, let me think. I kind of remember where I was when I hit $1 million, like in my crypto account. It's the first time I had $1 million in a crypto account. Okay. And I had made money in other places, but I wasn't liquid. Whereas crypto, you're pretty much liquid. So I remember first having it, and then it went down like $18, and I was like, I've lost everything. I'm under $1 million now. I'm not a millionaire. Shit. And then it went down as low as like 600K, 650K. That was it. And I was like, oh man, dang. Because I had equity before. I had equity in a company over $5 million, but it doesn't feel real. It's equity. It's like, I don't know. It's funny money, whatever. But crypto is liquid. Crypto feels real. It's like real money. If you wanted to dump it, you could dump it and get your money. Um, so yeah, I mean, I remember feeling like I had lost everything. I'm like, damn, it's down 350K. I've lost everything. That's 35%. It's a big hit. And then it would go up, you know, over the next kind of crawl upwards. And then I hit 2 million. And it would go back down to, 1.6 or 1.8. I was like, I've lost everything. And it's all relative. But there was a certain point where I think once I got past 3, then I started going, it's all just funny money again, because I hadn't expanded my spending. I didn't get out of control with my spending. And then I realized that it's all just like a ping pong ball. And you don't ever really own or capture all of it. And the other thing too is, let's say when the market's at the peak and everything's great, you cash out. Now you're stuck in cash, and they can debase that shit 24 hours a day. And then you're like, crap. So when you're in cash, you're like, you feel like you have a victory for a few seconds. So let's say everybody here at the all-time high of your account, probably in December, right? Somewhere around December, maybe you had all-time highs in your account. You grabbed the cash, and then you had it. But now you're sitting on cash that can be devalued. And it's like, so I don't know, man. I started to let go of this idea that I own anything, even what's in my account, the value of it. I just don't ever think that that's mine. I just go, okay, if the whole world collapsed on itself, what is the point where I would need to sell stuff, take it out, pay off everything, pay off car, pay off everything. And as long as I stay way above that, the rest of it's funny money. And it's not really mine. And even when it's mine, it's not mine, because I'm not going to live forever. Well, as far as you guys know, I don't know if any of us will live forever. Even if we live to 200, 300, 400 years, Methuselah status, at some point, a lightning bolt or some damn parasite's going to burrow itself into our robot brain and whatever. So I think it's worth thinking about letting go of the idea of ownership, just completely letting go of the idea of ownership. And I don't know if, and I agree with people that I get why you think, or why that might mean something to you. It's a good statement, right? The principle of ownership, cornerstone of our liberty. It's the pursuit of happiness. I don't think ownership is I don't think the principle of ownership is the cornerstone of liberty. I think the principle of freedom, free to make your own decisions, do as you please, as long as it doesn't encumber somebody else's ability to do as they please. I think that's the closest thing to happiness you're going to get. Stuff is cool, won't make you happy. You know what will make you happy though? The food barrier. When you get to the point where you can eat whatever food you want, that's happiness, bro. You get so much happiness in such a small amount of time with food. It's the great payoff, right? Now you have to do all these other things like work out and all this kind of stuff in order to be able to eat whatever food you want. But if you get to the point where you can eat whatever food you want and you can afford to eat whatever food you want, that food barrier, once you pass that like event horizon where I can now eat all foods, you reach apogee and you float in happy land. Paying off a thing doesn't really mean shit. Okay, I don't have that bill next month. So you're going to replace it with some other crap. Like, I thought about, well, should I pay off my house? Yeah, why? Oh, well, then it'll be paid off. Okay. Why? Well, because then you won't have to pay it. Okay. Fucking so what? What's the difference? It just makes no difference. You're going to be paying for something, whatever. So getting rid of the concept of ownership frees you, it frees you in your own accounts as well, in your investment accounts. Because then you're not ever looking at the number and deciding that the number is the measure of your success. You really only over time measuring against where you were months or years ago in your portfolio. That's it. At any one moment, it's a disservice to look at the account and say, oh, where am I? Like, for instance, if I looked at the account on Thursday of last week, oh yeah, woohoo. Friday, oh man, bad. Saturday, worse. Sunday, oh, it's getting better. Monday, we're back. Tuesday, oh, it's down again. That's like 4 different times I would be happy and sad over nothing, the same slop moving back and forth. Generally, the accounts are increasing. That's all that really matters. You let compounding interest work for you. You make as good of decisions as you can. You realize that the structure of the market is now gambly and stupid in nature, very low IQ, which also kind of helps explain the gold trade quite a bit. The gold trade is a very low IQ trade. People don't want to hear this, but coming from the gold business, I can guarantee you that people buy gold because inflation, and that is so false. That is such a false logic, a flawed perspective. Gold does not perform well against inflation at all. Matter of fact, it's one of the worst performers against inflation. Gold is an uncertainty play and nothing more. And when people don't know what to do, and they don't, when you have general mistrust, which I agree with, just a general mistrust in governance, fair. And there's no other decision that can be made because your ability to make fundamental analysis is plagued because you're probably not super clever. And that's okay. Everybody's not supposed to be clever, right? Everybody is who they are. Nature and nurture and self-evolution, right? But the gold trade is a low IQ trade. The majority of the people that are in the gold trade are in it for absolutely the wrong reasons, and they have no clue what the right reasons are. They can't spell deflation, much less explain it. So the gold is a distrust dummy trade. In the crypto space, the ancillary to that would be the dummy perp trade. The dummy. Now, gold miners, well, they're taking advantage of the dummies. High five on the gold miners. That is a rigged game. There's nothing scarce about gold, not here on Earth, and certainly not in the universe. It's everywhere. I mean, everywhere. So the gold miners, they start throttling back production so that they can do what everybody with any commodity, no different than oil cartels. What do? They try to manage supply and production so that they can manage the price and make money. The difference is the world doesn't need gold, and right now the world does need oil. It's price insensitive, meaning if you got to drive to work, you're going to drive to work whether the price is $5 a gallon or $2 a gallon. You're driving to work. Period. Central, I don't know that that's accurate, Barry. I know that some central banks claim to be buying gold, but I just don't think that's very accurate. What a few banks do is not what all banks are doing. But I would say this: what are central banks comprised of? Foolish octogenarian political hacks, economists. Not the smartest in the room. So again, the weakest, slowest, empty suits at the table are the central bankers, and oddly enough, central bankers don't always come from banking backgrounds. Isn't that weird? I mean, I guess it's not weird. They're idiots, but yeah. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. So yes, there is this kind of theme that central banks are hoarding, but on the aggregate, I don't think that's the case. I think the one thing I will agree with Bitcoin on is that gold miners, I think you're implying that gold miners are the real, those are the real kind of decision makers in that industry. They are taking advantage of the dummy trade, and they are nailing it. And yeah, it's a de-dollarization trade. Well, that's the thesis that's put forward, but de-dollarization is not happening. Like you guys all know this, right? Like this part should be obvious to everyone. There is no de-dollarization. That is just abject false. It's just false. People aren't running away from the dollar. People aren't hiding. It's quite the opposite. The dollar keeps going up. The dollar keeps getting stronger because the world does trade and commerce in dollars. And when there's a lack of dollars, there's a panic for dollars and quality collateral. So yeah, they have measurable metrics, gold miners versus just a rock. I'm not quite sure what you're implying. I don't know which they you mean. Which they do you mean, sir? Because you gold miners have metrics. You don't know what the real metrics are because you're not inside. You don't know what their production capacity really is. You don't know how much they've throttled back. You don't know if they're scaling. Remember, as the price of gold goes up, mines, they don't scale in direct proportion to the price, right? They scale their ability to mine. They don't scale their mining. Gold miners are a business with reports. Yes, the things that they choose to include, but I think maybe the problem, Bitcoin, I think that maybe your issue is that you take a lot of things at face value, which that might be doing you a disservice. Gold miners and their business reports, I've dug into a lot of them. I'm not sure if you have. When you own, let's just think of it in terms of one mine. You own a gold mine. You and your geologists have an idea of what's in the mine, right? You guys basically know. But what your investors know is not that. And what your investors and the market knows is not that. It's what your production is. That's it. So the numbers are your production. Miners don't disclose they don't really disclose with any accuracy what they've got. Part of it is because they don't want their competitors to know what they're sitting on. And they don't really want the market to know how much gold they have. They just know, they tell their investors, we've got a lot. Trust me, things are good. How good? Real good. Wink, wink. Well, how good? Real good. Well, can you quantify that? No. Or they'll have some very vague, wide numbers. So that's it. And again, I think if you think of it more as a business, unless this stuff is not static, like you don't take a picture of a mine and go, this is everything we have, and here it is. That's not how gold mining works, man. It just isn't. And that's not really how any mining works. You're running a business. You keep a lot of information to yourself. You also don't want what if you're at the end? What if you have a mine and you've mined it, you've plumbed it? Are you going to tell your investors? There's nothing left, guys. We're just digging into the walls. We're just digging dirt now. We hope to find carbon. We'll start selling charcoal. We'll start selling coal. No. Oh man. Anyway, you should go run a mine. In about 3 seconds, you're going to be like, ah, shit. If you're a public gold miner, what is your first and most important task? Anyone? Maximize shareholder value. It ain't to get gold out of the ground. It isn't to do anything in the market. It is to maximize shareholder value. Do you think that some of that might include being a little bit close to the vest with your numbers? The only thing the public has to see in your quarterly is production. Quarterly production. They want to know that you're innovating, that you have their best interests at heart, and that you are digging. That's it. What's our production? How much did we make? Maximize shareholder value. Everything else, secondary, tertiary. So anyway, the best mining is refining. Let other people find your gold and just run a refinery. This is how we knew what everybody's production was, because we would get a lot of it. We had industrial gold, and then we had jeweler's gold. Jeweler's gold is pawn shops and cash for gold places and all that kind of stuff. We had gold from there, and then we had industrial metal, which is more like tailings, mining tailings, which is the low yield stuff, like less than 1% per ton type like stuff. And then there's the higher quality tailings, and then there's the actual kind of production that they'll smelt on site, and that we will like more deeply refine. And so those are all kind of slightly different processes, but we knew what was coming out of mines because they would bring it to us. You own 2 refiners. You own 2. What kind of refiners? You own 2 gold refineries. Remember, this is my business. So if you're going to put that out there, you better know what you're talking about. I will expose you. Maybe you better walk that back, buddy. Let's see, Conan. Bitcoin is the internet of money. Hypercycle internet of AI. I hope it is. What do you mean you own a gold refiner and a silver refiner? There's just refining. I don't know what you're talking about. You mean you own a smelting machine, or you own a refining facility? Because the refining facility for gold and silver is the same. Now, do you own a facility that does low yield silver solvents and industrial silver, which is a mostly chemical process? And then you own a gold facility, and then what kind of gold? A refinery does all of it. Gold is tailings. No, that's not true. Gold is not just tailings. Tailings is the lowest yield of the gold refining. Silver is I don't understand what you're saying. You own 2 refiners. Oh, you mean you own equity in 2 refining companies, and they're low yield. So gold tailings is a low yield facility. You know what that is, right? I'm sure you do. For anybody that doesn't know, after you go through and destroy the landscape. Okay, yeah, I thought you said you owned refiners. Then don't say you own refiners. You own refining equities. We own a refinery, Bitcoin. We own a refinery in Texas, an actual refinery where we fucking melt shit. So I've done it with my hands, like for years. That's what we do. That's what I'm telling you. This is where I came from. I'm not a hater of gold. I've touched more gold than anyone that you'll ever meet, unless they work at there's no gold in the U.S. depositories anyway, but unless you put your hands on over 1,000 bricks of gold in one day, I promise you I've been around more gold. Gold tailings is very low yield. So tailings is miners will go and they'll dig up the land, which, by the way, they're supposed to rebuild back to the way it was before it started, and then they get sued if they don't do it and all this. So they go and they mine. Tailings is the excess dirt that may have some tiny amount of gold in it that was lost in the bulk process. That's what tailings are. That is not gold mining. If the company is mining tailings, that's like a secondary product. That's like pulling peanuts out of someone's crap. Okay? It is so low yield, it's almost negligible. And you have to do giant high volume to get anything. The only good thing about it is it's probably more consistent. Doing tailings is probably consistent because out of a certain mining area, you probably know what your low yield consistency is going to be. So it's probably less volatile, I guess. You kind of know what you're getting. And silver is processors. That is extremely low yield. So you're in 2 low yield refining companies, which is probably I bet their stock is very consistent. And if their inflow is consistent, then probably they're going to be more affected by the price of gold. But I don't know. All that is, it works until it doesn't. I mean, you had a decade where it didn't work. So I don't know. It works until it doesn't. Oh, hole in the ground owned by a liar. That's funny. That is unfortunately the case, man. We saw people doing all sorts of sketchy stuff. They would come in with samples, and they would want us to take their geological sample and do a mass spectrometry on the sample. So we would take the sample, we would refine the sample, we would create a sample rod. We would go and use the mass spectrometer on the sample rod. We would go 10 times, kick out the high, kick out the low, do an average of the middle, provide them with and then they would go, and of course they would shotgun those samples. And then they would go and sell investment into a mining, a plot of land that they wanted to mine based on this clearly shotgun sample. We knew, like you could tell, you're like, wait a minute, this kind of gold, because gold has a kind of fingerprint before it's melted. Like you can take 3 or 4 samples of gold and you can go, okay, this is river gold. This is clearly placer. This is like bullshit tailing gold. This is like Prel, which is like the little gold BBs that the jewelers use. Like these are 3 different kinds of gold. Once we melt it and refine it, once it's refined, it loses its fingerprint. But when you first refine it and you haven't converted to pure, so remember, there's refining and then there's refining to pure. If you're just refining to mixed metal, if I take whatever your gold is, your watches and all this kind of stuff, and I melt it in a crucible and I pull a sample rod, that sample rod is going to tell me pretty accurately the percentage of all the metals in that mixed metal blob, that mixed metal bar, right? I take 100 ounces of jewelry, I melt it, I pull a sample rod. I take the rest of it, I pour a 99.9 ounce bar. It's a mixed bar. It's been refined, but it hasn't been refined to pure. That's a different step. So that refined bar and that sample rod, the sample rod tells me exactly what's in that bar. So I look at that sample rod, I hit it with the mass spectrometer, kick out the top, kick out the bottom. There's a fingerprint in there. And that fingerprint is gold, silver, cadmium, nickel, chromium, zinc, all this kind of stuff in very specific and peculiar percentages. And we can tell, oh, that's jeweler's gold. Look at the amount of silver per the amount of this. Look at how much copper's in there. It was yellow gold. Like, you just start knowing when you're melting stuff like, oh, that's going to be high copper because it's got the very goldish look. Oh, that's going to be white gold. There's more silver in it. Okay, it's going to be less copper, more silver content, and which gives it the whitish look, right? And so things like that. A little bit of zinc, some chromium, nickel, and so there is DNA at that point on that gold. You know when the gold samples are bullshit because you're like, come on, dude. This gold did not come out of the ground over there. Oh, yeah, we did the geological surveys. That's why you guys hear the stories about like shotgunning. They would go they would go out the night before and put load in like buckshot, like bits of gold, and they would shoot it into the ground. And then when the team came out, and they were like, you're like, okay, I own this plot of land. I think there's gold here, fellas. What do you guys think? And they go and they start doing their samples. It's like, Jesus Christ, there's gold everywhere. There's tons of gold. Yeah, I told you. I feel it, man. I just feel it. Yeah, I bet you feel it. That's why this is so appropriate. A hole in the ground owned by a liar. We could also tell after looking at a lot of assays, ASSAY, of gold, you could start to know kind of where the gold came from. And anytime there was big robberies, like big gold robberies or whatever, you could tell like, oh, interesting. This gold may have come from there. You don't know for sure because what they'll do is they'll kind of mix in a bunch of other stuff and like stolen coins, right? They'll take a bunch of stolen coins, they'll mix in some other kind of more murkier stuff, and they'll melt it all together in a mixed brick, and they'll be like, oh yeah, there was a refinery that was closing and I bought them out. And you're like, oh, okay, right. They didn't want to sell their gold. They sold it to you. Okay. So yeah, gold has a fingerprint. It has a fingerprint. The gold business is an incredibly dirty business. The refiners lie to you. The mining companies lie to you. The miners lie to their bosses. They shove gold up their ass. They swallow like everything you can imagine. They do it. It's just everybody steals from everybody all the way. We had to start cutting our staff down because at one point we had like 8 or 10 people, but everybody steals all the way around. So we had to cut our staff down to like 4 people. And everybody has to know they're always on video all the time. Video of the crucible, video of your hands, video of the little bucket where the gold is, video of the guy walking into the facility with the gold, video of him opening it up at the teller and showing them what the gold is, video of us weighing that. Like everything has to be recorded so that every step along the way they can be like, wait, from here to here, where'd it go? How did you? Oh, it was lost in the process. Was lost? What do you mean lost in the process? Yeah, when we went to melt it, it wasn't there. What do you mean? Well, it was there. It was there 3 minutes ago. How's it not there now? And then you see that as the guy's pushing gold into the crucible, he's, scooping up some earrings or a necklace, going like this. It goes down his shirt. He keeps like, you can't believe it. What's more scammy, gold miners or crypto? Well, more scammy. It's all scammy. People in crypto, I think, are dumber because it's a newer scam. But they're almost simpler. Gold mining's been around for a while, and they've been cooking the books forever for many thousands of years. Thousands. Remember, this goes back. Gold mining is alchemy, right? Mining and refining is alchemy. How long have there been gold coins? Pretty long time, right? So how long have humans had to refine the gold heist? The hole in the ground owned by a liar? A pretty long time, right? So long that people that understood math knew that a gold-backed anything makes no fucking difference. And yet that shit still gets pushed on idiot economies and idiot governments and idiot economists. People still push, it's gold-backed. Okay, and? Well, it's backed by gold. Cool. Does that limit their production of currency? No, because fractional. Okay, then it makes no difference. It makes no difference at all. Oh, yeah, you're right. I guess so. Yeah, no shit. So they're both scammy. There's been many, many more hundreds and hundreds of years to refine gold scamminess. I'm sure it gets passed down from one shyster to another. It's neither rare nor exotic nor all that interesting, but it looks cool. Crypto is new scamminess. People scamming new people because they don't understand what they're looking at and taking advantage of an intellectual gap. Perfect example, XRP. Just taking advantage of an intellectual gap. People that don't understand that there's just nothing there. They don't understand that what's there is not interesting anymore because technology and every single company, every layer 2, every single layer 2 is as or more competent than whatever the XRP token itself could do. Now, the company, who knows? There's hundreds of people that work there that only have a paycheck because they sell more of that token to idiots. So they have a cult. And so that's one of the problems with new technology. New technology, people get very culty about it. So when you say what's more scammy, gold miners or crypto? Well, there's a lot of scumbag thieves, liars, and crooks in crypto. But the gold business, the gold market cap is higher by by a magnitude and change, right? What's the gold market cap now? Closing in on 20 billion? And what's crypto for? So I would say that the gold business is at a minimum 5 times more scammy. 5 times more scammy. I tell the XRPers I sold it 7 years ago for more than it's worth today. I know, God. This is the thing, you can't And I've also learned that there's no point arguing with people that are religious about this stuff. There's just no point, um, because they're like, yeah, but wait, just wait for the reset. You're like, what reset? The big reset. Remember, people kept saying it. ISO 2022 or whatever, or 10022 ISO. Okay, and like a guy, I was at my buddy Dave's house, my SEAL team buddy, and he's having a party. And there was a guy saying that. He said, oh, yeah. Well, this wasn't that long ago. This was like 3 months ago. Oh, ISO 2022 or whatever. I go, okay, and they're going to have to switch to it. What does that mean? They're going to have to switch to what? They're going to switch to it. That's the whole thing. Who's they? The banking system. Oh, because of ISO 2020, whatever. So the whole banking system is going to switch to Ripple, to XRP? Yeah. Why? Because of ISO. That's all they know. They don't know anything else. They don't even know what that means. They don't even know what it is. They don't know what a little regulatory footnote is. They're like, oh my God, this is happening. And then when it doesn't happen, they're like, well, David Schwartz is going to build something amazing. You're like, but David Schwartz quit last week. He quit 2 weeks ago. You know that, right? No, but he did that on purpose. He did that so that you don't see what he's doing in secret. Oh my God. You guys are just fucking clueless. But that's not just the XRP community. Unfortunately, all of these communities get very cultist. You notice now that the Cardano community has become just as culty, and they follow their leaders. And honestly, if I have to put my money behind Brad Garlinghouse, who I know will steal from me and lie to my face about it, or Chris Larson, who will steal from me and lie to my face about it, or Charles Hoskinson, who is so eerily inept and kind of he's got uncomfortable low self-esteem, and you see it in everything he does. I'm not sure which is worse. At least with the crooks over at XRP, at Ripple, at least you know what they're going to do. They're going to sell 1 billion XRP or so each month that they get for free, that they gave themselves. And as long as there's a greater fool waiting for ISO 20022 or whatever, and the big giant great reset, they'll be able to keep doing it. With Cardano, there's nothing. Like if you own Cardano, when Charles Hoskinson said, I think a good idea would be that we use the treasury to buy a bunch of Bitcoin, why on earth would you own one fucking token after that? When the Cardano Foundation wants to become a Bitcoin treasury, a digital asset treasury with Bitcoin, why would you own Cardano at all ever again? Not one coin, not one. I own none. I emptied out all my. I was like, really, get out of here. So your question is actually pretty good about what's more scammy. I'm not sure. I think it's a stupidity scam in crypto, and people get scammed because it's stupid and new. I think it's just a centuries-old, age-old heist in the gold business. Diamonds, even more scammy, but we don't have enough time to talk diamonds, but we could do a whole thing about diamonds and what a total fucking rot that is. They are, less than worthless. Dude, diamonds are not at all rare. At all. Like, they're as rare as blades of grass in your front yard. They are the likeliest end result of high pressure on carbon. You know where that is? Everywhere. You know what happens to organic material when it dies? And the residual, that's carbon. That's why we have, carbon dating. How long it takes for half the material to be replaced by carbon, and then half the material replaced by carbon, and you can date things based on that for very loose estimates. Yeah, it's like the main state of organic material as it descends into high pressure scenarios. It's the main state. There's nothing rare about diamonds. Obviously, there's rarity in big giant ones and things like that look really cool and have cool kind of inclusions and kind of anomalies in color because of because of little it's actually it's unclarities. It's like I know that boron makes really cool looking, like little bitty bits of boron in there, changes the color and all this kind of stuff. Colored diamonds are actually marginally flawed diamonds, but because they happen in unique situations, they, as society changes, the green blues are amazing, the blue greens aren't shit, and that whole thing is a scam. Like, oh my god! And then the ratings, GIA ratings on diamonds, and then the wrap report that you get out of the pawnbroker's guide every 2 months, and that tells you what you're supposed to price diamonds. Get the fuck out of here. That whole thing is a scam, dude. It is so scammy. The diamond business is so scammy. And yet, well, organic. You mean non-organic, right? You mean cultured. I think you meant to say cultured. You're talking about cultured diamonds, right? And guess what? You know what? Millennials and generation whatever after that, all that, they don't care. They don't care that you. No one really cares. No one really cares whether it's cultured or not. They just see bling. People are like, oh wow, it's blingy. It's a diamond. It is a diamond. Cultured diamonds are diamonds. There's even firms that will do cultured diamonds and put in little inconsistencies in there, little to make the diamonds look more real, right? So, yeah, gosh. Anyway, there's a lot of ways to give your money away out there, but all this stuff is good. It's good to kind of go through the mental Olympics in your mind. You want to grapple with this stuff, even if you don't ever make a decision anyway related to this. Simply grappling with these weird, sometimes complex, but sometimes not that complex, kind of economic and financial situations. By grappling with these little things, these little weird markets, the spammy shit, the cultism, the low or marginal IQ, the heist, the technical successes and flaws. I mean, by dealing with all this kind of stuff. So I'll give you a quick example before we go. You look at Hypercycle, you say, why am I'm not making money off my Hypercycle? The tokens, okay. We always said, the tokens are used to merge to licenses. Okay, great. Well, how come my license not making money? Well, it might not. But you know what else? Even if the licenses don't ever make that much money, as far as producing money, there may be a whole kind of second market or third market forming now where you just sell the licenses that your node factory makes. And again, this is not a full discussion, it's just a derivative, because other companies with server space may just want them to increase their aggregate, kind of like putting their AI on steroids. They just want to make the net ecosystem smarter and more robust so they can sell more space or sell compute. So there's a good chance that companies, and again, this is loose and vague, but companies might use your nodes that you just sell them. Just think of yourself as a node farmer to just juice up their AI compute. And they're not really looking for cash. Now, they'll pay you for that, but they're not looking for a cash increase. They're looking for more amps. They're looking to amp up their AI compute, which they would end up making more money on the other side of the table, right? Their business, their actual business. So there's all these indirect things, and that's one of the things about working in the gold business is it definitely teaches you to be more like an Eskimo and to get every bit of meat off of the whale. Does that make sense? Like, leave nothing. Then use the bones, render the whole goddamn thing down to nothing. Do nothing. And so on that, Bitcoin, I think that your mind is in the right place on that kind of stuff. I think you definitely render these things down a lot more than I think a lot of other people do. So when we battle back and forth, it's definitely good. It's good banter, but what you got to be careful of, and we all have to, myself included, don't fixate on a rule. Don't fixate on things as we think they should be. We have to accept things as they are. That part's difficult. We have to let go of our idea. I think we have to let go of our idea of ownership. We have to let go of our idea of deservedness, of fairness. We don't deserve shit. We just don't. There's not a physical principle of deserving in the universe. There's no physical principle of fairness. And in markets right now, we're in a period of intense irrational behavior. Irrational with gold investors. They're investing for the wrong reason. They're winning, which is great. Because again, I want everyone to make money, even people that are wrong, even people that are stupid. We know they're going to give their money back. But what is the average gold investor? A little bit older, closer to retirement or retired. Do I want them to make money? Of course. I want them to make money. They don't have as much time, maybe. They don't have as much time to catch up or to make it back if they lose it. I'm super happy. I'm ecstatic that gold's making money for people. They had 10 years where they made nothing. Before that, they had 30 years where they made nothing. Nothing. You know, silver hasn't even caught up. Inflation adjusted, it's still barely 1/4 the price it should be from the Hunt brothers from back in the day. Remember that? Like, so I want everybody to be financially secure. It feels great. It really feels great, right? Your problems just kind of wash away. I want everybody to be happy financially. But in order to keep it, that's when you have to scrutinize and you have to be honest. You have to be honest with the realities that we are in, right? And yeah, dude, if you're making, I'm glad. Anybody that's making money, I'm glad. And I don't even care if you're making money on a bad trade. I don't care. Listen, I think Solana is a piece of shit, and I think it's run by absolute scumbags, pushed by the worst scummy VCs on the planet. But if people are investing in it and they're making money, great. Like, awesome. Cool. I got no problem with that. I'm not a big fan of scumbags making money, but you know what? Scumbags are going to make money all the time. And so if you let go of this principle of fairness and deserved reward, just let go of it. There's a lot of people that their success is built on stepping on other people's necks. It is that. There is no fundamental principle of fairness in the universe. A bird, what's the quote? A bird will fall down frozen and dead in the middle of the winter, never once having felt sorry for itself, nor claiming this is unfair. You know, like a molecule floats through the cold, dead universe, approaching cold death, and it never once has the capacity to ponder fairness. So we just have to do the best with the tools that we have and the ammunition that we have. Aim small, miss small. All right, and on that note, let's call it a day. Stay in school, don't do drugs, don't do anything my poor insolvent drunk, struggling on meth grandmother or Brandon wouldn't do. I'm guessing the weather is total dog shit where he lives because it's crap here, and I just feel like if it's crap in LA, it's really dog crap wherever he lives, which is where the grass is frozen solid and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, see you tomorrow.